And I want to see if anybody in the audience has specific questions on the WTO entry issue or any suggestions of how to move it forward now to the kind of rapid conclusion and positive conclusion that the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, obviously would like to see. Would anybody like to come in and raise a question on that? Yes. And here they have microphones. Please identify yourself and then ask the question.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm Blake Marshall from the PBN Company. Thank you for your remarks. I was just wondering if you could give us a bulleted summary of the 4 key issues as you see them, sort of sentence encapsulated, the major points there. For example, on agriculture, one might divide SPS issues and subsidies, tariff questions. How do you see those? Encryption, IPR in the civil code, the law on medicines for pharmaceuticals, et cetera. Okay,
IPR. We agreed that the civil code of my country, this law was adopted just a few years ago. And Part 4 is responsible for IPRs. And, lawyers were completely against the American proposals. So we managed to persuade them, and I talked with the members of State Duma, our parliament, and we agreed that all these changes are possible. So if it is just like a package, we can then persuade State Duma to vote for these amendments. And so everything is drafted, it's clear, American position is clear. We can accept it if we understand that it will help the whole, if it creates the package, resolvent. Then voluntary sanctions and in total, as if I can say so, rules. We agreed that Russian government can adopt governmental decision which will create a certain rule for exporters, the people who export meat to my country, to apply and cancel the decisions which will be against American meat coming to my country. There is a special proceedings how to appeal and how to cancel the legislation which is against the import from other countries, including the States. Then 2 other issues relating to special equipment. That's, I think, I need to speak with my colleagues within administration. That's a special security equipment and so on. And then we have state-owned enterprises issue, which is, I think, most difficult. It was, the whole scheme was invented during the Soviet time. There is a special law in the States, and we need to understand how then American administration and your courts will treat Russian companies which are controlled by the Russian government, or if not controlled, somehow else. But it's still vague. We need to talk about this. We have position from American experts that it could be done on the annual basis, which is not acceptable for us. We need to understand that this system will work, as a permanent one, not just on the annual basis. And we need to discuss this with Secretary Kirk.
I think there was another question in the back from the press row. No? Okay. Another one up here? Yes.
Mr. Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much. Randy Levinas from the U.S.-Russia Business Council. I want to thank you for your remarks about the business and economy and bringing our 2 countries closer together along those lines. We at the U.S.-Russia Business Council very much support that goal, and it's something that we certainly want to see accomplished alongside with you. Regarding the WTO accession, I was wondering if you could clarify then further the thinking in terms of the customs union and Russia's own accession. I understand what you're saying, that there are 4 issues that are out there that you seek to move and accelerate in the coming weeks. How do you square that with the customs union and Russia's goals along those lines? Are you saying then that the accession would move forward towards the end of this year with the customs unions. So with the customs union, so you.
Okay, I
Yeah,
understand.
please.
So
Thank you.
customs union and WTO accession, they don't contradict each other. Customs union is a very simple formula. We need the same level of customs with Belarus and Kazakhstan, and we have internal institutions how to adopt these duties and protect them. It's very easy, format, institution. It's not like, European Union or something. And now we agree with Kazakhstan and Belarus that most of the duties would be accepted on the same level as Russia agreed with WTO. So all our talks with WTO members then led us to a certain level of customs. So the customs within customs union will be the same level, let's say. So if we start working within customs union from January the 1st, then the problem is that Kazakhstan and Belarus negotiate the same level of customs with WTO members, because now they have agreed about something different. So for Russia, it's not the problem to access WTO. It will be more problem for Kazakhstan and Belarus. And we need to find the formula how to make for them it's possible to finalize as soon as possible their talks. So they don't contradict at all. For Russia, there is no problem to access WTO with the same level of customs duties.
Could I just ask if you have discussed that with Mr. Lamy or others at the WTO, because you recall he made a statement after Mr. Putin's original statement throwing doubt on the possibility of your coming in with the customs union as a whole. You've now tried to clarify that by indicating that the customs union itself would have only limited impact, but have you checked that out with Lamy or the WTO people to know that that would conform with WTO practices and rules?
In June, when we announced that we will try to access as customs union, we meant that we will synchronize, we will be, negotiating with WTO altogether, because it was very, it was not easy for our partners to get different signals about WTO, and they thought that we will first, or how to explain it easier. They received contradictory signals about our position relating to customs union. And we want them to feel completely comfortable that along with Kazakhstan and Belarus, we will do everything we agreed on. So we will adopt all legislation, and I brought here to the States all the legislation to create customs union, a few thick volumes. It was not easy, and we worked all the year, because a year ago Presidents Nazarbayev, Medvedev and Lukashenko, they agreed that customs union will be in force a year earlier than planned, because the original plan was January the 1st, 2011. And we wanted them to feel comfortable that we don't do something behind their knowledge. And then when it was announced, we received immediate signal from Secretariat of WTO that it's impossible, because it never happened. There is no precedent how to accept customs union as the member. And we said, okay, if it's not, we will speak with lawyers. We, we hired a law firm which gave us an advice, saying that the scope or the subject which is ruled by the customs union, we can with this sphere try to apply as one member to customs union. But with everything else, we need to apply as nation. So we said, okay, we are pretty flexible. We can do, in different formats. The only thing we need to do it in a way that our partners feel comfortable that we are doing exactly the same we agreed on.
We wish you the best of success in that effort, and we hope that the customs union issue does not further delay the entry to the WTO. I kind of like the way you put it first when you said you wanted to get accession achieved first and then move on to the customs union. And if that were possible,
we wanted that, but it didn't happen. It was our plan,
yeah.
And it's obvious. We always, we repeatedly said about this, that first WTO accession, then customs union. But it's not easy then to explain just to people who observe your foreign trade politics, saying, okay, you have neither WTO nor customs union. Then how can it happen?
Do you think there's still a chance that your preferred strategy might prevail?
I think that now we are on the right path. We need to start with customs union from January the 1st. We need to talk with our American partners about WTO accession. We need to understand the framework and time possible to do this. And, when I talk here in Washington, D.C., maybe I will get a clearer picture. But at the moment, we understand that, and when I speak with my experts, they say that, in order to find proper solutions for all the issues, we need a few months more.
Well, we appreciate your very candid and very detailed response on that. Let me shift to another topic. In your initial remarks, which I found fascinating, you talked about the need for the G20 and the G8 to coordinate responses to the evolving global situation, not viewing them just as crisis mechanisms, but as leading the world economy. Could you talk a little more about how you see the G20 and the G8 evolving to help lead global economic developments, as you talked about it? How can they help Russia in your efforts to reform your own economy in the way you discussed? What will Russia be seeking from the G20 and the G8? What do you expect might emerge from the Pittsburgh meeting later this week? Talk a little bit about that global economic coordination process, how you think it can benefit Russia, what Russia can bring to it.
Okay, let me first then start from G8 format. As you know, Russia became the member of the club a few years ago, but still when the ministers of finance and the heads of the central banks meet, there is G7 format. And they say, no, when Russia reaches the same level of economy or will get the same potential influence, we will expand and we will be G8. And along with that, all the recent years, people are talking about energy security, responsible behavior, energy charter, and all these issues, climate change, and so on. And I can tell you, because I was a Sherpa before my colleague Dvorkovich took over, and we talked within G8 format about all these economic issues, but two were critical: energy security and climate change. And then I always ask the same questions. How can you talk globally about energy security and climate change without Russia? It's ridiculous. And again, there was always, an explanation why we should wait, what we should do with Russian economy and so on and so forth. And we said, okay, maybe it's not the same level of economy, the size of economy as American economy, and the total, the same as European. But it's bigger than many other countries which are members of G8, like Canada, Italy, and so on. Russia's economy is bigger. And I don't think that it's more influential or more important. It's just, if we talk about the figures, it's bigger. And it's growing very fast. And, in terms of energy security, Russia can give a lot to the, to the global development. And then we said, okay, it's something wrong going within this format. while we talk about G7 only talk about financial global issues, and then at the same time we invite every year 5 more states. They are called as outreach format. You know them: China, India, South Africa, Brazil, and Mexico, and this year even more. Then it means that just G8 cannot cope with all these problems. And our Canadian colleagues always, thought, and they, repeated it, that G20 is the future because it's more, it's more elastic, it's more flexible for the current needs, and we need to, to shift the center from G8 to G20 in order to analyze what's going on in the global economy and what we need to change. So we believe that within both G8 and G20, Russia can bring a lot to the global economy, giving its resources, well-educated population, because we have very, very well-educated people. If you travel a lot and you just compare the level of education in my country and others, we have still, with all the problems, but we have very educated people, which can, along with natural resources we have in my country, with this intellectual power, we can create something new and give this new to the global economy, to the whole civilization. And but at the same time, we understand that we feel that the lack of technologies doesn't let us convert our economy. We need diversification, but it doesn't work now without the assistance from our partners, from the United States, European Union. I said all of this. So I think within G20 and G8, any other formats, maybe they will appear, we can bring a lot to the table of the global civilization, but at the same time we understand that our future which will create new Russia, will be dependent on mutual cooperation. So it's only within the club.
Let me open up for questions on this set of topics. Let Andy has one first, and then we'll come right here.
I wanted to follow up with a question about energy security, which you mentioned. Mr. Medvedev earlier this year made a proposal to renegotiate or revise the Energy Charter Treaty. And I was wondering if you could talk about what has been the response to that proposal, and also what are the specific ideas or goals that the Russian government would like to achieve with this proposal.
Maybe you not. Maybe you know, but maybe not. But when drafting the paper for G8 summit in St. Petersburg, we accepted, all G8 countries, that real energy security could be based on 3 major issues: security of demand, security of supply, and security of transit. And there are many other things within the paper, but just these 3 pillars are the most important. And it's not traditional approach for countries which buy oil, because they say that security of demand, it's not the appropriate way to discuss. We need to talk about only security of supply. And Russia, we produce a lot of oil, at the same time we consume a lot of oil, so we are, we understand both consumption and just, and production. And later we faced with real difficulties how to transit oil and gas. All these difficulties we had with Ukraine and other countries. So we think that real security, energy security, could be covered only by the international treaty, which concludes special rules for all these 3 spheres. Without security of transit, there is no energy security. And when President Medvedev said that we need to create new international legislation. We need to discuss this. Many positions from European countries and others, they were not very positive because they set their position again on the security of supply, and they didn't want to change the energy charter. And we strongly believe that the energy charter should be amended, or we need to create new international law. But we need to understand that all the major actors and players are involved in producing or giving us the feeling of energy security. So without any security of transit, there is no way to forget about these possible amendments. So it's very easy.
Question here.
Igor Ivanovich, I want to come back to bilateral commerce.
Could you identify, please?
Yeah, my name is Sergei Kravchenko. I'm the president of the Boeing company in Russia and CIS. And I want to come back to your point that bilateral commerce is not less important than bilateral politics. What I'm thinking about, if you look at the structure of the Russian export to the United States today, it is still mostly titanium, and we're a big part of this, special metals, aluminum, uranium. If you look at the structure of the export from India to US, it's dozens of billions of dollars, maybe 20, 25 billion of dollars in intellectual services. To your point that economy of intellect is a priority for President Medvedev, I want to ask you, what does the Russian government plan to do or does right now to support the plan that I think was developed during the times of President Putin, when the special economic zones that German Gref was so excited about, the special taxation for the Russian companies that will export engineering, export software, would be developed. Because I don't hear much about this recently. Maybe it's because of economic crisis. Is it still on the agenda? Because I just want to finalize with one number. Boeing is the largest user of Russian intellectual resources, but we're just one company. If you add to Boeing projects Intel, Motorola, Microsoft, maybe 10 others, it is still less than $1 billion. And if you think about thousands of American companies, large and medium and small, that buy intellectual services from India, it's between 20 to 25 billion of dollars. So how can we change it, and what's the Russian government plan to do this?
Unfortunately, it's not the matter of taxation politics, because we have, our taxation level is much lower than in the States and other countries. And I think we have very good legislation, and still we're drafting new rules. And I think that, even during the crisis, we lowered the level of corporate tax, but it's not the, it's not the answer. Special taxation for different companies, I don't believe in it. And while you talk about, and we talk about new economy, as President Medvedev calls it now, clever economy, or we normally say knowledge-based economy. We don't say that Russian oil, gas, and other things, don't go to different partners. No, not at all. We think that it's our international responsibility to provide for global growth whatever we possess. We get it, we have it, and we think that we can share, and we must share with that, and we give all of that stuff to our partners. But we shouldn't be dependent completely on all of these exports. Just giving oil and gas to the global growth, we must create, let me say, a separate economy for the internal demand. Because internal demand could be very high in Russia. With this population, with this territory, with possible infrastructure and so on, both government and private demand will be growing enormously, I think, during the course of next years. And I believe that there is no still certain level of trust between America and Russia, European countries and Russia, where Europeans and Americans can set up new businesses in my country and trust that they can earn money, their investments would be protected, and so on and so forth. And I think that we need to work on it. It's obvious. We need to change, investment climate. We need to provide more guarantees to the investors, showing that our judicial system is changing. The whole, investment climate is changing. Property rights are protected, and that we welcome foreign investors. Maybe you know that there were a lot of rumors that we will restrict foreign investors when we adopted a special law. But now, when we practice that law, it means that we welcome even more on the just more transparent basis all these foreign investments. And last year, foreign investments dropped dramatically, and I hope that this year, the curve will change. We need to observe money coming from abroad, and again, it's more the substance of trust, mutual trust and mutual cooperation. It's not just legislation, but I think it's responsibility for both parties. It's not just Russian government and Russian people. It's both Russian people, Russian government, and American government, American people, and so on. We need to we need to pursue all this task together.
Okay, 2 more questions over here. No, I'm sorry. We got 2 back here. We're talking now about the macroeconomic stuff.
I have a question. Any of the problems that you've listed.
Where's the mic?
Picking a phone.
Thank you. My question is about some of the problems that President Medvedev has listed: diversification, modernization. Many of these are old, and language is different from past campaigns. And it seems to me a major part of the solution is convincing people in Russia that you're serious. The level of corruption is a concern. It's increased. The level of the number of bureaucrats has increased. What is new is, for example, state corporations, the creation of lots of them, and Medvedev has taken up this issue. Can you explain what the goal is of this campaign against them? Who is the enemy? If it's the bureaucrats, you're on some of them, so I just wonder, is it state ownership that's the problem? And at the Valdai meeting, Medvedev invited criticism of internal Russian policies. He said these were legitimate discussion topics. Many Americans believe that the political system and the way it functions is connected with that economic system. Are both of these now subjects for discussion between our 2 governments, the politics and the economics in Russia? And just one comment, I think Andy made an important point about U.S. decisions and Russian decisions on political and security issues. I would hope U.S. decisions are made on U.S. national interest, not whether the Russians are for or against it. And I hope the Russians do the same. And I hope on ballistic missile defense you can take yes for an answer.
I believe that whatever decisions are taken by American administration, that's for the sake of American people. There is no doubt about that. And if your administration, along with that, hear our voices, that whatever you create could be damaging, could be very, dangerous for our relationship, and, in reality will not protect United States and Russia, will create a subject of mistrust and so on and so forth. Maybe if, those voices, if they were heard, and this decision was taken along with, protecting your security interests, I welcome this decision. And we heard many, many positive voices from American administration when President Obama was elected. And as I understand from my president and my prime minister, we wanted and we will pursue this way. We will respond, and we are ready for the new picture we are ready to change this situation, and we understand that's the responsibility for both parties. And I can tell you that in my country, when it was announced about missile defense program, it was announced through different mass media channels, and just common people were glad to hear this. Maybe in America it's vice versa. Maybe people don't just mention this, but in my country it was mentioned, and people maybe became more, just felt more security. They feel now that both presidents can talk, they can hear, they can achieve. And I was present once when President Putin and President Bush were talked about missile defense program. And I was, it was in Heiligendamm, I think. And it was, very interesting because it was obvious that President Putin prepared himself very carefully with lots of details how to protect both countries and Europe from possible danger. And he just proved that all possible measures which are taken by Americans have nothing to do with your national interests, and so on and so forth. And then President Bush said, "Oh, I can see the level of your disappointment. Then maybe something happens wrong because I didn't get that strong signal from my assistants and from my people who are around me that you take so seriously all of this." And my president those days, he said that I'm not just thinking about Russia, I'm thinking about the whole world. Because if we do, that level of mistrust, then, it will be felt globally. And we need to send stronger and stronger signals that we work together in order to provide this security. So just to finish about this, I can say that we understand that this position is based in order to secure American people, but at the same time we hope that it's because our position was heard, and now it's realistic that global missile defense program could be done only including Russian missile, possibilities or whatever. Without Russia, it's impossible. With our territory, with our possibilities, without all of this, it's impossible to provide global secure system. Then you say about enemies. We don't have enemies. Enemies just, we all understand that, corruption is bad. Judicial system is not perfect. We have many other difficulties, but the problem is if we, from year to year, we don't observe changes. And I believe that every year we observe positive changes in my country. The corruption is changing, it's big, it's huge, but it's trying to, to find a new model of existing, while President Medvedev says we will fight with this. But when you say about corruption, yes, but corruption has been, for ages in my country. And if you look at other countries, including Asian countries, which are G8 members, they have huge level of corruption. And we know all the stories that from time to time, they become, known for people. But it's not just state-owned enterprises or state corporations. And, state corporations were created in order to try to take all the assets from the control of the governmental bodies like ministries and so on as a further step for privatization. Because we have a lot of assets we cannot sell right now, but all way of managing the assets, we can, it doesn't work. We need to create something new. Then we set up a few state-owned enterprises, and they're different. One is, for instance, just to provide money for the regional governments to, to provide construction of new houses. Another one, which is state enterprise, includes, different assets, just production, industries, and so on. So they are very different. Not all the governmental enterprises are criticized by President Medvedev. So it's different. And we need to pursue with further privatization. We have a lot of assets now which are still state-owned, and at this level of economic development, we can provide a completely new wave of privatization. It will be different from early 90s. It will be well and thoroughly prepared, without any critics, and it will be transparently sold. But we need to carry on. So if you say that old things, but maybe modernized language, you can call it whatever. But people sometimes say you need to repeat it at least 100 times in order to change the situation. With this task of modernization, this is very true. People need to hear every day that we need to behave differently. Modernization, it's not just something which is prepared by the government, financed through the budget, and that's the delivery. Please take it. It doesn't work like this. Modernization means that when you drive your own vehicle, you just you use safety belt. Then you don't smoke a lot because you think about people who are protected by the same insurance system. You don't drink a lot because you are responsible. You have kids and you have your family and so on. It's in wider sense. So we think about real modernization when you change your habits, you change your economy, you change your system. Then it's going to be a real success. Then it will be modernized Russia. And just 5 directions, you know about them, that everything was announced by President Medvedev. It's just small part of modernization, like nuclear power, nuclear programs, and drugs, medicine, and so on. That's spheres where President Medvedev can concentrate his attitude and provide special maybe financing to achieve special goals. But that's not the modernization of the country. And in this particular aspect, I think that both language and the sense are different. We speak about modernization, but we mean that it's going to be different for the whole population. And his recent article was completely about this, and he asked all the people via internet provide his or theirs their understanding how we can modernize the country, which is completely new for Russia. President appealed to the public saying that please let me your knowledge. Maybe you will see another way how we should proceed. It's different. I cannot say that and agree that it's old, both language and sense different. New.
Okay, one more.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Rich Harold with GE General Electric. It's very exciting to hear your plans for moving toward the knowledge-based economy. And actually, GE is involved in many high-tech areas and innovation areas like Boeing and the other companies mentioned today. But I want to ask you this, please. It will take quite some time to reach the knowledge-based economy, and the traditional economy will have to bridge for a long time to come, and indeed continue far into the transition process. In order for the current economic base to provide a brighter future, Russia needs a lot of investment to upgrade infrastructure throughout the country, all kinds of things, roads, railroads, and so on. Just so happens that what I'm working on is trying to help Russia upgrade the railroads with new locomotives and modern traffic management systems. You mentioned that the budget for 2010 is already foreseeing support of the knowledge-based economy. Can you tell us, please, what plans there are for budget financing, but also other means of financing in the next year for things like the needed upgrades to Russia's infrastructure?
Okay, the level of finance for Russian railroads and road constructions would be not less than the level of 2009. which is not easy because we had different needs, and we argued a lot within the government, but we agreed that for infrastructure purposes we will keep the same amount of budgetary funds as it was for the year 2009. And plus, Russian railroads would be able to place the bonds, part of which would be bought by the state-owned banks. So necessary funds will be given to Russian railroads in order to buy new locomotives, cars, and this is very important company for the country, and we understand that it's collecting more money now because the beginning of the year was very bad for the company, and now the level of the business is up to 60% from January. So they will collect money from the market for their services, then it's direct budget, and then placing the bonds.
We're almost at our closing hour. I wanted to ask one final question, going back to your very helpful comments in your remarks on the dollar and the international financial issues. And you, I think, helped clarify your view of the role of the ruble and the international monetary system more broadly. You said at the end you would like to see the development of some new rules for more reliable currencies in the international financial system. Do you have specific ideas in that direction that you could share with us, and particularly what you think about the role of the International Monetary Fund, the special drawing rights that it has now been creating, and whether that plays a role in the vision you have for a more stable international financial order?
IMF and other institutions, we think they need to be changed in a more fair way, where the economies like BRIC economies, major economies, could play a more important role. It does mean that we don't want, previous major players keep the same position. Anyway, it's, the scale of American economy is huge, and you will always influence, any institution which will deal with economic development. But at the same time, we understand that IMF, World Bank, regional organizations should be maybe shifted to another system where regional countries, regional leaders will play more role, and before the crises or during the crises, these institutions could play more specific role. And if you ask me, do we have precise plans how to shift these institutions into something new, a new shape? No, we don't. We have our proposals, and we discuss these proposals within G20. And I think that slowly the understanding of these needs is coming. And when the leaders met in London, everything which was connected to or concerned about dollar and new reserve currencies, just countries split, and one group wanted to mention that in the final communique, and the other part said no, it would. But now it's not that frustrating anymore, and people just understand that we and other countries we don't want to forget about dollar. We need dollar. All of us, I can tell you that we need dollar, but we cannot depend completely, 100%, only on one world currency. And even before we create or we understand that another currency appears, we need to understand that the country which provides this currency behaves more, accurately, I would say, or responsibly. And because if we had huge reserves, and more than half of those reserves were in US dollars. And when everybody says about depreciation of dollar, it's not easy for common people and for just for the experts. Just accept that everything you have just could be reduced in the volume. And we think that there is no any absolute rule in the world, but our responsibility is to find to, is try to find, rules which would be more accurate towards current situation. For the moment, we don't observe this. The major economies are suffering. They make suffer developing economies, but we need to complement each other.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, we thank you very, very much. We once again thank the ambassador for hosting us in this elegant facility, our colleagues at CSIS, Andy, John Hamry, and all. We thank you all for coming. This was a fascinating and very important session. We wish you best success in your meetings here in Washington today and in your subsequent meetings up in the UN and at the G20. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the book.